good to be back. Hello and welcome to the third series of Bad Movie Beatdown. And what better way to return than to insult Kurt Wimmer once again with probably one of the most requested movies ever, Ultraviolet. As many of you know, one of my earliest and most controversial reviews was for Kurt Wimmer's Equilibrium, a sci-fi action flick that was laden with plot holes and ludicrous plot twists, extremely derivative, and so much heavy-handed symbolism it even spawned my signature catchphrase. Symbolism! I would be the first to say that it's not one of my best reviews and was made before my style was really cemented by experience. However, I do stand by a lot of what I said in that review. Which brings us to Kurt Wimmer's second outing in the director's chair, Ultraviolet. Yet another sci-fi action flick, Ultraviolet had a troubled production history. Wimmer delivered the film to Sony, who thought the film was, in Wimmer's words, too emotional. So Wimmer was booted from the project and Sony re-edited the film against his wishes. Believe me, studios only re-edit films as a last resort if they're terrible. I mean, did you see the emotional scenes in Equilibrium?
Sir, toss it back in. I'll finish it off.
If that's what they left on the cutting room floor, they were doing Wimmer a favour. I'm also reviewing the theatrical version of the movie because they never released the unrated cut in the UK. So we start the film with a title sequence using graphic novel covers. This is actually the best part of the film, but it seems weirdly meta, showing a self-awareness that the rest of the film seems to painfully lack. It's oddly defensive too, as if it was using its comic book inspiration as a defence for its lack of logic. I think there's someone on this website who would disagree with you there. Also, check out the score playing in the background. Maybe it's just me, but isn't that a tiny bit reminiscent of Spider-Man?
Hello, my name is Violet, and I was born into a world you may not understand.
Mostly due to the shitty writing and plot holes. So we open with a group of hemophages, described as pinballs because it looks really cool, breaking into a blood bank and attacking the scientists inside, ironically without a single drop of blood. Brutal violence without a drop of blood. We're firmly in PG-13 territory then. But it turns out it was a trap as guards swoop around them and hose them down with bullets.
Touch nothing. Obviously.
I'm awkwardly expositing what we as characters already know for the sake of our audience.
My God, Ross.
Poor bastard.
Well, that wasn't abrupt or excessive, no? It's only now that Violet, played by Milla Jovovich, gives us some exposition to explain any of this.
Trouble began when an American weapons lab discovered an obscure virus that had been around for centuries. They tried to modify it to create faster and stronger soldiers, but instead, they created a more contagious form of the disease, a strain called HGV, hemophagic virus. And that's when the disease got out. Everything changed.
Milla Jovovich fighting in a world ravaged by an epidemic? Hello, Resident Evil. In case you're wondering what the effects of the outbreak are, a hemophage is basically a fancy term for a vampire. Yes, pointy teeth and sensitivity to UV light. The theatrical version seems ashamed of this fact and removes the explicit narration in the extended cut. But it doesn't really matter if they're vampires because no one does anything vampire related. No one sucks blood or anything. They might as well be infected with herpes for all the difference it makes.
The medical establishment took it upon itself to protect its public. At first, requiring victims to wear identifying armbands, then rounding them up in special camps and facilities. Until finally, people just stopped hearing from them.
Wow, Kurt! I know the tetragrammaton though was supposedly an accident, but this is blatant. In the first 5 minutes, no less. Because when you need to add substance to your shitty movie, just add Nazis.
The trouble began for me the day I learned I was pregnant. The same day, I lost my husband, my future, my life.
It's clear from the way the film awkwardly speeds through this prologue that this has been heavily trimmed down from a much longer sequence. Take this example.
I contracted the disease and lost my baby.
Whoa there! This is not something you have in a brief bit of narration, especially since it's pivotal to the way the character acts.
With those few on the outside, I formed a resistance, went underground, and began fighting back.
Gee, an underground resistance against a totalitarian regime. Where have I seen that before? Oh yeah, bloody Equilibrium. Very creative, Wimmer. The evil overlord of this regime is Daxus, who has nearly wiped out the hemophages and is working on a weapon that will wipe out what is left. He sends for a courier to pick up the weapon, who turns out to be, you guessed it, Violet. Violet is then subjected to a number of extensive tests for several minutes.
Just have to make sure you're human.
That's a good visual metaphor for what it's like to watch this dung heap. We watch these scenes for several minutes and I really have to ask why. Is this meant to build tension? Because we already know this is Violet and she told us that she is a hemophage. I mean, did they expect us to forget what Milla Jovovich looks like? And speaking of Milla Jovovich, yes, one of these tests involve her stripping down naked. Look, we get it, you're sexy. Can we please move on to something that isn't completely irrelevant? So finally she's allowed to get to the case when the actual courier arrives, blowing her cover. Time for a fight scene, and if you guess that Milla's going to be facing off against faceless masked goons in black, then congratulations, because you spotted another thing lifted from equilibrium. I guess it figures, when you borrow as much as Wimmer does, it's only a matter of time before you start ripping yourself off.
How did a hemophage get past the screen?
We don't know, sir. Maybe medisuppressants to subordinate the blood characteristics.
That one line is going to be all the explanation we're going to get for how Violet fooled the censors, even though we've just spent 5 minutes showing how ridiculously thorough they are. She then uses a miniature sun in her belt to defy gravity and pull a pair of guns out of thin air on some more guards. Yeah, this is the first time we'll see the film's ludicrously far-fetched sci-fi tech that we put into use without scarcely a moment's explanation. The gun trick, for instance, is basically because she can pull weapons out of another dimension. Basically, her wrist gloves are like the TARDIS. Why yes, it is the super-duper version of Preston's gun and ammo-filled sleeves in Equilibrium. After several repetitive scenes where she single-handedly takes out guards that vastly outnumber herself, she speaks to Resistance leader Nerva.
It's me.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
The objective is the destruction of the weapon. If you can't make delivery, destroy it. Under no circumstances can you look inside that case.
This seems awfully familiar. I'm sure it's nothing. So with barely a moment's pause, we're plunged headfirst into a vehicle chase. This is probably the most creative Wimmer actually gets with his action sequences, because we didn't have one of these in his previous film. Plus, he really puts the gravity-defying gadget to use by allowing Violet to drive up the sides of buildings. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie will feature the same sword and gunplay we saw a dozen times in Equilibrium, repeated a few dozen more times. And why yes, Violet defeats a mounted minigun by flying towards it carrying a handgun. The helicopter then explodes for no reason. Like Preston before her, Violet is one of Wimmer's invincible heroes. Apparently Wimmer dislikes tension and thinks good guys should win quickly and easily. I cannot stress how dumb a perspective this is for an action director to take. Would Die Hard have been half the movie it was had John McClane not spent half the film running on glass-sliced feet? Would Bourne or the recent Bond reboot have been successful if they weren't shown to be fallible? By making an action hero vulnerable, you force them to rely on their ingenuity to win, and that makes for compelling cinema. Watching Milla Jovovich plough through rooms of people is not. And then Violet has to evade even more men trying to find her. Will these infernal action scenes just end already? Not that she seems too worried, because she talks to Nerva via hologram on a flight of stairs. A nice inconspicuous spot to have a conversation with armed men chasing you, no? Now with the film finally quieting down, I can get to talking about its visual style. The visuals are extremely distinctive, and this works in the film's favour, at first. It only takes you 5 minutes, however, to realise that it actually hurts your eyes to look at for a long time. The colours are so incredibly bright that it's enough to give you a massive headache because they're so unnatural. Worse still, there's a weird blurring filter applied seemingly at random on various shots. I have no idea what the purpose of this is, besides giving the audience eye strain. In the lift, on her way to meet her fellow hemophages, she breaks the rules and opens the package to discover it's a boy. At least when Wimmer made Equilibrium, he was borrowing from respectable sources like 1984 or Brave New World. Now he's lifting ideas from the Transporter. That's just sad. Nerva explains that the child's blood contains an antigen that could kill all hemophages. Violet argues that it could be used to make a cure, but he overrules her and shoots the child. But it turns out Violet expected this and she replaced the boy with a hologram. And don't worry, because the movie will do the exact same reveal to much lesser effect later on. She escapes, but ends up running into the Blood Chinois. Who are these people? They're, Asian. Seriously, the movie never explains to us who these people are, and we never see them after this scene. I guess Wimmer wanted some Yakuza-like people in this film for no apparent reason. They also want the boy too, so they draw their guns on her. There's a ridiculous moment here where the camera keeps swooping in and out of people's sunglasses before finally following the reflection of a bullet going into a bad guy's eye. This is officially the point where style over substance moves into farce. Because she's in the Wimmerverse, where people can't aim straight to save their lives, she literally dances through the gunfire completely unarmed so the Chinois fire into each other. She is literally posing through an action scene. I can't believe Wimmer wants us to take this seriously. This has to be self-parody! Violet survives the gun battle to discover the child standing on the edge of the building. Why does he do this? Never explained! Because reasons for things are stupid! Violet grabs the boy as some more men chase her as Daxus arrives on the scene.
The boy is useless to you. He's laboratory bred, vegetative, practically brain dead. Just give him to me.
And then you can use him to kill me and everybody like me.
He's not what you think.
What is he then?
He's my son.
Shocking?
You're full of shit.
But we can't settle for more than 2 minutes, so Violet drives out of there and into a subway station.
The only reason I saved your life is because whatever's in your blood can save mine. If they corner us, suffer no delusions. I will kill you.
Suffer no delusions? Who speaks like that? We managed to get a relatively quiet moment where we learn the boy's name is Six, played by Cameron Bright.
Give me your arm. Now you listen to me, Six, or whatever your name is. I might not be able to get you where I want you to go, but I sure as hell am gonna get your blood down. Now give me your arm before I take the whole thing. You think those people are bad? The real monster? You don't want knocking down your door is me.
Milla, your attempts to come off as tough are painfully unconvincing. It turns out that the boy isn't actually brain dead and has just been pretending so that Daxus won't know. Back with Daxus, he is cornered Nerva and makes a deal with him. Kurt Wimmer himself makes a cameo in this scene where Daxus does us the favour of shooting him. Violet is left with no one else to turn to but her scientist friend Garth, played by William Fichtner, who you may recall from that other film I won't mention. His lab is actually a TARDIS that looks like a cargo container. That night we discover that Violet is dying from the virus, but so too is Six from what they have put in his blood. Yes, the emotional drama of the film is loaded with sappy sentimentality.
Where is this? When I was a kid, I used to dream about this old, dusty road, and it was such a peaceful place. But then you realize, when life settles in around you, places like this don't exist.
I don't like where this emotional scene is heading.
We can't reverse engineer a cure out of his blood.
What?
And if that's not bad enough, the kid's hot, Violet. Practically radioactive. He's got a tracking device in him that's accurate to about 100 meters. We're shielded in here.
So what's the first thing that Violet does?
You've got a tracking device in you. We've got to get moving before it locks on. Come on.
Didn't he just say that his TARDIS blocked the signal? Why are we running away? This doesn't make any goddamn sense! Violet separates herself from the child for some dumb reason, allowing him to get captured by Nerva, who takes him to a church.
Careful, V. Gunfire would attract the human security teams.
Which is why you fired at Violet before you entered the church. This film is contradicting itself from scene to scene!
Don't you realize what this child has in him?
I don't care what this child has in him.
It's not a vampirial antigen, but a human antigen, lethal enough to kill every human on the planet.
Why would humans create a human antigen?
What do I, or even you, care why?
Did Nerva not ask Daxus about this when he was told? And what use would this be anyway? There are hardly any hemophages left. We've established this. Never mind, here's another action scene to shut us up. you spot that? There are clearly heads flying into the air, but no one was decapitated and they're gone in the next shot. Did they forget to delete a visual effect? So Violet kills the other hemophages, including Nerva, and rescues the boy. She then speaks to Daxus on hologram.
Just bring him to me. The antigen dies with the boy, and neither of them are any good to anybody.
You said you were his father, for God's sake.
No, Violet. I don't have a father.
More precisely, he's my clone. Number 6 in a series of 8.
So why did you say that he was your son? Oh right, it's another thing that makes no sense!
I have 700 soldiers here with me. What do you really think you can do against that many men?
I can kill them.
Given what we've seen so far, I believe her. She goes to confront Daxus, but Six tells us that the numbers are too great even for her. Violet faces Daxus and his huge army, who reveals to her that he plans to release the antigen and charge the world for the antidote. I'm wondering what the human guards behind him are thinking about this. Daxus opens fire on her, but you guessed it, it's a hologram. Instead, Violet and Six go to a park, and in one of the most nauseating scenes I've ever seen, spend Six's last moments playing in the park just as he dreamed. This scene is so sugary it could kill a diabetic. And so Six dies as Daxus' men arrive, taking his body and shooting Violet. Symbolism!
Violet. Violet.
Did you really think the movie was going to end here? That would imply that it has mercy. Unfortunately, we've still got another 20 minutes to go. Yes, bloody Garth rescued her and brought her back to life by the power of Deus Ex Machina. She is initially annoyed, but she suspects the boy might still be alive, so she goes to confront Daxus in his base, the Arch Ministry. Great guards, by the way, who apparently don't remember this leather-clad woman from the day before.
Searching for concealed weapons. Number of weapons found. Many.
That may have been funny had I not seen the exact same joke in The Matrix. Even Wimmer seems to be bored of the one-side action scenes as she kills them all off screen. I would complain, but anything that gets us closer to the ending is a plus. Oh look, it's a corridor filled with guards who Violet defeats single-handed, just like that other movie, except now it's with swords. Congratulations, you found the find and replace function in Microsoft Word.
1 woman against 14 men. It's ridiculous.
You and me both. Daxus, are you really surprised? It's only the 100th time that she's done this. And then we get another action scene in the library where she manages to kill the population of a small village. When you've seen her kill a dozen people once, you see it the next 100 times. On the plus side, at least Violet has some sort of injury because 2 of her fingers got chopped off during the battle. Not that we saw that. Then Violet takes out 2 more sets of guards off screen.
You are all gonna die.
Even the movie knows how ridiculous this is by making them happen off screen as a joke. Now that she has the body count of a small country, it's time for the final showdown between Violet and Daxus.
No. You got hemo blood on me. It is on.
Yeah, it is.
Kurt Wimmer got paid to write this! This script, which could have been written by a 10-year-old on a sugar rush! So Daxus and Violet have a sword battle when Daxus darkens the room for a shocking revelation.
Too bad you converted with only mild light sensitivity, unlike me. What? That's right, Violet. How do you think a lowly lab technician made that meteoric rise through the ranks? Yes, Violet. I'm like you.
Huh? What? No! My god, it's like Kurt Wimmer tried to outdo the infamous gun swap plot hole in Equilibrium. Oh wait, sorry, Plot Canyon! This contradicts everything we saw! Why is he an obsessive neat freak when he was a hemophage all along? If he has night vision, why does he not wear sunglasses in daylight? How did he keep his condition secret so long? Why would he kill his fellow hemophages? This makes no fucking sense! It's right up there with immortal bum murderer Charles Dickens for sheer ridiculousness. Due to the spilt flammable liquid sprayed on Violet's sword, she sets it on fire so that she can see, and Daxus does it because it looks really cool. Yes, our climatic battle is one where we can't see what the bloody hell is happening. Just because an idea sounds really cool does not mean it will look very cool on screen. Eventually, Violet picks up Daxus' flamethrower, sets him on fire and cuts him in two. This sounds less painful than watching the film's 84 minutes. And, as a cherry on top, Six comes back to life because Violet's hemo tears fell on his body, so now he's a hemo. What a crock of shit! Deus Ex Machina much? This is so sappy, it makes me want to projectile vomit in revulsion. With the promise of a cure still unresolved, we end on a blatant bit of sequel baiting.
And my body? Would Garth be able to fix it the way another had cured my soul? Maybe, maybe not. But this I do know. All those still out there who spread oppression, injustice, and hatred, they better hope not.
Don't get your hopes up, Missy. Ultraviolet radiates shite from every pore. The film is visually unattractive to the point of being uncomfortable to look at. It has plot holes the size of asteroids, atrocious dialogue and performances, and completely disjointed due to the studio-imposed edits. Even the action scenes are repetitive because they are virtually identical to each other. It's just a lazy, extremely derivative movie that plays out like the world's longest eyeliner commercial. I'm Matthew Buck, beating down bad movies everywhere.